Hi everyone, welcome to Urban Sketchy. If you don't know me, my name is Donald. I am an urban sketcher from Scotland, and today I thought I'd take you on a wee tour of my sketchbook, just to show you some of the sketches that I've been doing recently and how I use a sketchbook, because I use it in a slightly different way to maybe a lot of sketchers, and hopefully give you some inspiration and ideas. So let's get started. This was the Open Distillery, and this was the one that kind of kick-started things for me, that this was the style I was going to sketch in. This kind of wibbly wobbly, shades of grey style came about because I was getting a bit frustrated with watercolours at the time, and I felt like I was drawing pictures that were okay, but then I was applying the watercolour and I was just completely ruining it. So in a peak of frustration, I decided that I was going to give marker pens a go. And so I was looking for a soft brush type of marker that would be similar to a watercolour brush, and I came across these pens called Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Brush Pens, and they are the soft brush. Immediately something just clicked. I was able to just start creating pictures that I was really happy with, and that was actually at the point I realised that the final result doesn't matter, it's about enjoying the process. It's easy to say that once you start getting results that you actually like, but at the same time I kind of realised at that point it's about enjoying drawing, not about how the pictures look in the end. Nevertheless, I did get these pens and it kind of changed everything for me, because suddenly I was sketching and really enjoying the process and enjoying most of the final results that I was coming up with as well. So here goes talking you through them. As I said, this is the Open Distillery. It's on the west coast of Scotland, a whisky distillery, and I kind of just loved all the details and the plant pots and the whisky barrels and the cars that are all kind of wibbly wobbly, and there was just such a volume of detail to draw in, and it was quite a complicated process to start with, because you've never really drawn anything this complicated before. It seems like, although there's no way I'll be able to sketch this, but bearing in mind I was a fairly newish sketcher when I sketched this. It wasn't even that long ago. So if you think, oh, there's no way I could sketch something like that, promise you, if I can sketch like this, then anybody can sketch like this, and I would love for you to have a go at sketching in this kind of way. So yeah, this is the Albert Hotel. This is actually just along the road from me. I live in Fife, on the Fife coast, just outside Edinburgh, and so that's the River Forth, with the famous Forth Bridge going across it that I've managed to turn into a construction made of tagliatelle pasta. So that's fun. And basically the way I construct each image is to start with all the foreground items. So there's the signposts and the tables and chairs and lamp posts and just everything that's in front of the building. Then I would do the main part of the building and put all the details in. And then lastly I would put in the bridge. And I can kind of pencil mark all of this out first, so I know roughly where things are going, but it's a big kind of voyage of discovery when you go in with each picture. You have no idea what's going to turn out like, and this was the kind of the second one I did in this style. It's like, oh, okay, so I've got a kind of a style immersion now, and this is working, and wasn't just a one-off. So the sketchbook is from a company called Pink Pig. This is a display book, so it comes with black card inside it. It's A3 size. You've got a display book that you can sit on a coffee table or something and rifle through, which is what I quite like to do. I think it's quite a nice memento to have your sketches. And then this is the Bristol Board gummed pad that I use. So Bristol Board, if you've never used it, is like an ultra smooth bright white paper, and it's brilliant for drawing on. So if you're using technical pens, fine liners, colouring in markers, anything like that, these pads are absolutely fantastic. They're so smooth and bright white, really brilliant for drawing on. The pen just glides across them, and they're fantastic for marker pens as well, because they've got really very little texture at all. They're incredibly smooth, so when you put marker pens on them, the ink doesn't sink into the page like it does with watercolour paper. So it's really nice if you're using a marker pen. The only downside is that you can't use watercolour paint on them, but then that's fine because you've got watercolour paper for that. So yeah, this is across the water from the previous hotel, so you can see the same bridge in the background, the other side of it. This is South Queen's Ferry, and this is a pub that looks out onto the Forth, and yeah, it's been in here, nice little pub actually. I quite like this picture, the fun of it, because of if you look at the cars in the foreground, as I said in a previous video when I was talking about this picture, it does look like they've melted, and I kind of like that. It's just a bit fun. and it wasn't deliberate. That's just the way it comes out. So if you actually look at the car in the foreground, it doesn't appear to have any top half, it's just the bottom half of the car, and the windows appear to be on the top. And yeah, how on earth are you supposed to get into that car? Who knows? But that's the fun of sketching, is you make mistakes, you make things that look stupid or ridiculous, and you just laugh at them and move on. That's the way I look at it. And yeah, you could start to see the style emerging now. I'm starting to get a bit more confident about what I'm doing. Lots of wonky detail and as much stuff basically that I can throw in without thinking too much about composition or so on. Just whatever's in the scene that I can cram into the page is my philosophy, and you get some fun results. Here is the IMAX Playhouse Cinema in Perth in Scotland again, and this is my childhood cinema, so I grew up watching movies in this particular cinema. It's a really smart building, an old kind of Art Deco style, and you can see I'm starting to play more with things like the chimney pots at the top. They're enormous and kind of lopsided, and you're just adding in lots and lots of detail and making it as wobbly as I can. I think that's the thing, is when you're using the shades of grey, you have to try to kind of work hard to create enough contrast. So I'm adding in all the black, or it's actually a dark grey in the windows, and then contrasting that against the lighter shades elsewhere. You're just trying to build up an image so it looks really contrasty and punchy at the end. This is the Hippodrome in Bo'ness, a little town, and quite like the kind of fisheye lens effect on this sketch. The only thing I think I would do differently is I would move the stop sign forwards and put it in the foreground so there was a bit more depth to the picture rather than having everything in the kind of mid and background. And that's something I'd still need to learn to do, to teach myself more, is that you're allowed to move things. You know, if a sign or some kind of object that would be good in a different part of the picture, then move it. I tend to always just draw things where they are, but maybe it's another good piece of advice to teach myself, as maybe as anyone else who thinks they need to replicate the exact scene. When you're sketching, you don't need to. You can sketch things however you like. This is Highland Park Distillery in the Orkney Islands. This one took a bit more work because I had to work out the staircases. They were quite complicated, so I did a lot more pencil work on that section than I would normally do because it was a bit of a muddle and it took a bit of time to work out. But again, just adding the giant chimney pots and everything that creates that cartoony style that it's just become fun rather than a chore or a process you have to learn. It just becomes, right, what sketching style can I do that's fun for me and I enjoy doing? So that's what I would always say to anybody who's learning sketching, is just do what instinctively comes to you and don't worry too much about, oh, there's a right or wrong way to do things. Always just kind of stick to what works for you, what instinctively feels right for your hand and your brain to be drawing. Because I actually listened to a lot of courses and videos and so on, and I kept hearing this thing about there's a right way to draw and a wrong way to draw, and you shouldn't draw straight solid lines because it'll look like your picture is in a children's colouring book. Well, to be honest, it took me a long time to realise that actually I want to draw pictures that look like they could be in a children's colouring book. So yeah, listen to yourself more than anyone else, including me. Another cinema, this is the Burke Cinema in Aberfeldy. I actually drew this picture loads of times when I was trying to develop a sketching style, so I've drawn this one in lots of different ways before I kind of hit upon this particular drawing style. And maybe I'll show you them in a future video because I kept them all. It's quite a good way to learn actually, if you just draw the same scene over and over again in different ways, and if you're still trying to, at the stage of working out what your style is, do the same scene in lots of different ways and then go, actually I quite like that style, I think I'll work on that in future and see if I can get better at it. You can see I was still in my cinema phase, so this is the new Picture House Cinema in St Andrews, and you've got the cartoony style again. That car kind of looks like it's got a smiley face, which is nice. Again, the chimney pots are now tumbling off the building, they're not even upright, so it's just adding more absurdities, getting further and further away from reality. Not even the slightest bit concerned about replicating what the real scene is like. I mean, this is roughly what it looks like, but it doesn't really matter if I'm drawing things wrong or exaggerating things like the chimney pots and so on. It only kind of adds to the character as far as I'm concerned. And this one was a big success for me because it was probably one of the first times I'd ever managed to draw a staircase that actually looked like a staircase. I've got some weird spatial awareness flaws that I can't draw staircases properly, but this one turned out fairly well as far as staircases go. Kind of interesting how this sketching thing has developed for me, because when I started drawing, the very first drawing that I did was of a bookshop, and it was straight on, it was very simple. I didn't even know what urban sketching was at that time. I was just drawing it and colouring it in, and yeah, so it's kind of interesting to be at this stage now where I'm drawing such complicated scenes with so much detail that features a bookshop, and it's kind of interesting to see how your style develops. And I'm sure you all have been through that if you've been sketching for a while, that you'll remember back to the things you drew at the start and you're like, oh wow, look how much my sketching style has changed and how much more I know now. And that's always what I'd say if you're starting out. Stick with it if you're getting frustrated, because you will get better and you will enjoy it more, and then you'll be amazed at what you can end up sketching. Don't worry, there aren't too many more. There's this one, which is the Picture House Cinema in the place called Campbelltown, and I must admit, before I decided to sketch this, I'd never even heard of it, but I thought the building was quite smart actually. It's kind of a roundish building which was difficult to capture. I did sort of cut off the roof because I ran out of space, so that's fine. Sometimes that happens. And I always draw right to the edge of the picture, so you're squashing in as much of the scene as you can, as much detail as you can. And usually I would do the windows dark so the lights are off, but in this one I wanted to capture the inside part of the building because you kind of see the roof from the inside as well, so I decided just to leave it. Yet another cinema. This one's in Edinburgh, and this was an interesting development because I decided that I was going to try colouring in some lights. I started using a Faber-Castell Pitt pen again, but this is the firmer tipped ones and it's cadmium yellow. So from this point I've been adding a yellow light to each of my pictures, even though the rest of the picture is black and white, and it really makes it the yellow pop. That's something I've been doing quite regularly since. This is Open Distillery, another wobbly scene. There's not much more I can say about it, but yeah, another fun scene. I quite like the little toy cars. If you look right down in the middle of the sort of lower half, just below the main part of the building, there's two toy cars, and that was actually supposed to be a transit van, like a delivery van, and it ended up looking like a toy car. But that's fine, that's quite enjoyable about these kind of pictures, that they end up looking like a child has drawn them. This is actually a cinema as well. It doesn't look like a cinema, but it's this is called Mariel. It's in Shetland, in the Shetland Islands. Did get carried away with all the bricks around the harbour, and funny how just putting a few wee squiggles immediately turns a flat piece of white paper into water. I added a few birds as well just to make it a bit more seasidey. And this is the Cameo Cinema in Edinburgh. Just another basic street scene, not editing anything out, just drawing in all the rubbish bins and bricks and signage and windows and everything that's there, just draw it all in. And then the Film House Cinema in Edinburgh, pretty much the last cinema that I did. I've kind of moved on from that now. I'm doing more general street scenes rather than cinemas in particular, but you see the yellow in the lamppost, so again the entire image is shades of grey and then just one little pop of yellow colour in a light just to add a point of difference. So moving away from Scotland, this is actually Kennedy Meadows in America. My sister asked me to sketch this because she lives over in California and she visits this place to go camping, and I quite like all the details, like the cone on the left side, and there's the ice dispenser, and then there's phones and everything on the walls. It was quite a fun one to put together, and also just nice to do something that isn't Scotland, because I think that was the first non-Scottish scene, obviously drawn from a photograph I didn't travel across, especially at the moment. And then back in Scotland, this is Stockbridge, a posh area of Edinburgh, and yeah, pizza restaurant in the background. It doesn't look much like a pizza restaurant. I'm not sure what it used to be, but you can just add loads of detail, and I tried a different style of brickwork on this particular wall. Again, just kind of playing with ideas, adding in the yellow for the light, and yeah, not much more to say about that one. I won't say much more about this one either, because this is Blair Castle that I did a demo of, which is also on my channel if you want to go back and see it. You can watch me sketch that right the way through from start to finish if you'd like to see how we constructed it. This is the National Museum in Edinburgh. My lampposts are getting wobblier with every sketch, and I really like this building. I've been past this so many times over the years, and when I started sketching it was always kind of in my mind that this is a building I would want to sketch. Like architecturally it's quite a smart building, and there's loads going on, things sticking out and little kind of tunnely parts, and there's a weird thing in the top right side which I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's like some kind of inverted spaceship. Couple more pictures to show you. This one, I only did this week, and it was just a random street corner, loads and loads of wobbly windows and so on. I've mentioned this in a previous video, but I like to think when I'm drawing windows like this, it's a bit like if you're on an iPhone and when you press down your finger on the icon, all the icons start to wriggle about. So I kind of think these pictures are like if you press your finger down on the page, the whole page will start to wriggle. And I've had to turn the sketchbook portrait way for this one. This is the Glasgow Film Theatre. Talking about mistakes, this one is a good one. So I've written on the left side of the sign it says cafe and casino. I've been to the cinema loads of times. I always thought it said cafe casino because the writing is quite dark on the sign, and it actually says cafe Cosmo, which I only discovered after I'd sketched this. And as I say, I've been going into this building for years and I've never known that there wasn't a casino. I always thought there was a casino, but it didn't occur to me to ask because it's not the sort of thing I would go into. So there we are. I've invented a casino in this building. Again, if you make mistakes, just laugh at them and move on. It's not important. So that's the end of my sketchbook tour. If you would like to see more of my sketches, you can visit my website urbansketchy.com and check out more of my videos if you want to see demonstrations and other videos that I'll be creating. If you want to try and learn this sketching style or learn more about the types of materials that I use. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next Urban Sketchy video. Happy sketching!